Hello, my name is Joe, and welcome to my channel, Joe's Book and Movie Corner. Today I have a weekly reading report for you, and this week it's going to be all Booktrek. Booktrek, of course, is a reading event created by Vin at Revenant Reads, and the main mission is just to read Star Trek novels. So I have a novel I'm going to talk about. This is Star Trek number 48, Rules of Engagement by Peter Morwood. But before I talk about this, I actually have a nonfiction science book that I want to talk about. With my weekly reading reports, if you want to go ahead and just jump right ahead to the good stuff, head down in the description and look at the timestamp, and you can just jump right to this. But with Booktrek, there are a couple away missions. One is you can read a nonfiction book about Star Trek, or you can read a science book. So I wasn't intending to read a nonfiction book, or at least a science book this year for Booktrek, but I decided actually to read a book on physics, kind of a pop physics book. And this, of course, is a very well-known book. This is Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, and my copy is the illustrated version with the universe in a nutshell bundled together. I'm just focusing on A Brief History of Time, though. I'm not quite finished with it. I'm about a little over halfway through, so I'll probably mention this again next week. But yeah, overall, I'm enjoying it. I'm no stranger to reading pop physics books, although I will admit that I usually read about the first third of the book or halfway through, and then I'll just stop. But I'm no stranger to some of these concepts. I also recently, for a degree to just knock out some science credits, I took a couple astronomy courses. And if you take astronomy, you're going to be introduced to physics and some cosmology ideas. So a lot of this stuff I'm familiar with. The chapters that I'm trying to pay attention more to are any chapter on quantum physics. I don't understand the quantum physics concepts as well. So one chapter I really liked was when Hawking talks about the four forces, and in particular which particles are associated with those forces. So the strong and weak nuclear force, electromagnetic force, and the gravitational force. So that was really interesting. This book was written in 1988. There are a few things that I'm noticing I think are out of date, namely the age of the universe that he states. He puts it at 15 billion years old. Now, more recent calculations and observations, we've determined that the universe, I think, unless I'm wrong, is 13.8 billion years old. Another thing that I think might be out of date is he talks about various models of the universe where, for example, a closed model of the universe would be the universe starts at the Big Bang and then ends in the Big Crunch. And he talks about we don't know what's going on with the rate of expansion of the universe. And unless I'm misunderstanding something, I believe that the current rate of expansion is actually accelerating. So that's something that he doesn't really talk about too much. I think it's less of an open question now. If I'm misunderstanding that and you understand physics, and if I'm wrong about that, please let me know in the comments. But other than that, I'm enjoying it. Another thing, since I have taken an astronomy course, I understand scientific notation. It's kind of annoying that he, for example, he doesn't even use the word billion. He says 15,000 million for 15 billion. I think I'm saying that right. Or he'll say 1 million years old instead of just writing out the scientific notation. And I wish he wouldn't do that. So I could use a little more, or the next physics book I read, I want it to still be for the layman, but I feel like it could go, do things like use scientific notation. One chapter that I didn't quite understand, I just read last night. It's a chapter about the beginning and end of the universe, and various different initial states of the universe that he's theorizing. And he talks about imaginary time, and that stuff just went over my head. So I probably need to read that a little more closely. But yeah, I definitely want to read more pop science and pop physics books. I have some Brian Greene books, and I know, so he He's one of those authors that really pushed string theory in the 90s and early 2000s. And I know now that string theory is less physicists like string theory. I think it's had some trouble making predictions. So, maybe string theory, it seems to not, many theoretical physicists, I don't think they believe that string theory or M theory accurately predicts the universe as it actually is. But I would like to learn more about that, and I'd like to learn more about why string theory is kind of not as popular now. I'll probably mention this again next week when I finish it, and I'll probably have some closing thoughts next week. But let's go ahead and talk about the main event. So the actual Star Trek book I read, again, Star Trek number 48, Rules of Engagement by Peter Morwood, who actually I found out is the husband of Diane Duane, a very popular Star Trek author. So what is this book about? It is, one, I'm just going to say right off the bat, I didn't really like it. It wasn't very good. It's about there is a Klingon captain that kind of goes rogue. He is going on a test pilot mission to test out a new Klingon battle cruiser. And the idea is it's a computer-run battle cruiser, and there's a Klingon bird of prey that piggybacks onto it and then detaches, and the bird of prey can cloak and can control remotely the larger battle cruiser. So, of course, you're promised that, okay, this is going to meet the Enterprise and there's going to be a really good space battle. And that's why I sought out this book. I asked online, what's a good kind of ship-bound book with a good space battle? And this book came up. There's also, so the other story, what's going on with the Enterprise is that there is a planet that's kind of near Organian? I think I'm saying that right. Organian space. The Organians, of course, are the beings that imposed, during the original series, they imposed a peace treaty between the Klingons and the Federation. So there's this planet that's kind of in that area of space, and there's a planet that was thinking about applying for Federation membership, but they decided to kick out all the Federation members, and the Enterprise is sent to basically rescue all the ambassadors and the ambassadors' staff. The one problem with the book is it is a very ship-bound book. A lot of the action in the book, we don't see it. There's like a Starfleet security force or Federation security force led by a colonel that goes down, and they're like fighting battles with this terrorist group down on the planet, and we don't see any of it. We're just kind of stuck on the ship. So this promise of the confrontation between the Klingon battlecruiser Bird of Prey duo and the Enterprise, it doesn't happen until like the very last chapter of the book. And at that point, it's just kind of a letdown when it finally happens. There is some interesting things there's some intrigue on the Klingon ship, which is interesting. There's like an intelligence officer that's kind of an underground kind of secret police type intelligence officer that's on the ship, that's watching this rogue captain. It's interesting, but it's just, it doesn't really go anywhere interesting in my opinion, and it just kind of drags on and on. Some readers who have read The Final Reflection by John M. Ford, a very famous Star Trek book, this book is kind of takes the Klingons from that novel, which after that book was written, they were made obsolete and outdated by the TOS movies and then later by The Next Generation. This book was written in 1990, so it's well into the Next Generation run. And I think it's been a while since I've read Final Reflection, but I've read in a review that it tries to bridge the gap between the Final Reflection Klingons and the TOS movie and Next Generation Klingons. And that's kind of interesting. I mean, it tries to paint their society not so one note. I mean, one criticism I have of the Next Generation Klingons is that they kind of all seem the same. In fact, this is something that, I don't like the show Star Trek Discovery, but to give it some credit, it tries to do something a little different with the Klingons. I think it failed, but hey, at least it gave it a shot. So if I'm being charitable to Discovery. So, if you've read The Final Reflection, you might find some enjoyment out of this, but overall, it was boring. it was kind of tedious and long, didn't really go anywhere, and then the final battle was just kind of a letdown. Also, there's a Trouble with Tribbles connection, which was like, why? It didn't really play a big part into it. But yeah, overall, a little bit disappointing. So that is it for this week. That's all I read. So yeah, next week I'll have another reading report for you. I will probably wrap up my thoughts on A Brief History of Time, and I also will have probably another, speaking of Diane Duane, I'm probably going to start another Diane Duane Star Trek book. And also, I'll talk about some other sci-fi and fantasy as well. But that is all for now. Thank you.